Alrighty. So first of all, can everybody hear me okay?
You're a little bit low.
Alrighty. Here, let me try something. Alrighty. Is that better?
Yes.
Alrighty. So you guys can see my screen right now, right?
Yep.
Alright, so if you hear some noise in the background, it's probably just my water bottle. So I think you guys are wondering that. Alrighty. So let me see if I can just get my PowerPoint out. Alrighty, here we go. Put that down. Alrighty. So first of all, my name is Caleb. Better known on the forums as the Monster. But I'm going to talk about myself more in a little bit. So I had a little bit of a challenge when I was making this presentation because a lot of people already know a lot of stuff about marketing as far as apps go, and so I just want to make it clear that first of all, this webinar I sort of designed to appeal to everybody, people who are just barely starting out, people who have been doing this for a little while, and people who have been doing this for forever, since 2008 when it came out. So everything in this, and also everything in this webinar, I haven't necessarily tested too much, but I'm extremely confident in it, and I thought that it'd be a little bit more fun to show you guys stuff like that. More of my experimental stuff than, you know, stuff that I've already done, which isn't much. But so as far as everything goes, there's this quote by Reggie Jackson that I like a lot, and that says a baseball swing is a very finely tuned instrument. It is repetition and more repetition, then a little more after that. Basically, what that means to me is, you're gonna fall down a lot of times before you actually make it. And so, if this stuff, if you're not a billionaire overnight or something, after watching this webinar, don't feel too bad about anything. All right. So, as I said before, I'm the Monster, and I do a lot of stuff actually. Right now, I'm working on what's called an LC3, and I'm working on it for the Mac OS 10 instead of Windows, because right now they only have a Windows version for it. But more to the point, all of these things have a pretty distinct thing in common, and that's that they're all apps. Okay. So, what this means is that basically what I do is I take as many things as I can and I try to see if I can make an app out of it. Now, I know that sounds kind of, I don't know, more or less kind of sleazy or whatever, not trying to be this perfect app with a perfect vision. But one of the things I want to make known is that, an app doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be, this finely tuned thing. I mean, that's half of what updates are for. So you can go through and do that. So let's get to what we all want. So how do we take your app idea and sort of take the App Store and the Google Play or any App Store for that matter, and how do we combine that, and how much will we get? Well, the better question is, how much do you want? Because as far as just the App Store goes, it's already had 30 billion downloads, and $5 billion has gone to developers already. So I mean, obviously, you're not going to end up, with even 1 billion. Well, I don't know. You could if you wanted to work hard enough at it, but it's certainly possible to get up into the millions. If you want to, and if you put in the effort, and of course, given the amount of time that you put in. So an even better question is, how much time do you want to spend? As I said before, you go and you put in, you need to put in that time. like I said, this isn't going to happen overnight. This isn't something that you can just build. It takes a good amount of time, and it takes oftentimes a little bit of startup money as well. So it depends on how much time you want to spend. How much time do you want to spend, and how much do you want from that? Okay. So just think about those two things. So here's sort of my secret sauce. This is how I market my apps. Basically, I do two things. I come up with quality apps, and come up with a quantity app. Okay. So quantity apps is what you see to the right here. Okay, stuff like this geez, cut the rope cheats. All right, that's what this is called. But this is a better known app, Infinity Blade. All right, very high quality, very good art. Lots of time was put into making that application. So, in my opinion, all apps kind of fall into these two categories at the end of the day. And so, oh geez, sorry about that. Um, so basically, what I do is I build a lot of basic applications, and then I build a lot of, all right, sorry, quantity applications, and then I point them all, and I direct the traffic over to a quality app. So that'd be something like Infinity Blade, all right? So you go and you have something like a lot of these are or one of these are my own apps. This isn't actually in the App Store right now, but I'm trying to get that past the Apple right now. But all of these sort of point to this paid app. And so the reason for that is because obviously everybody knows that free apps get a lot more downloads. So the real idea is to be able to take all of that traffic that you get in your free applications and shoot it over to your paid application. And the best way to do that easily is with push notifications. Because, for example, the way I set up my ERB app, which is a YouTuber on obviously YouTube that I like to watch a lot. Basically, what I did is when I made an application out of their content. So basically, the idea with the quantity apps, as I said before, as I was talking about before, you basically want to just look for some content that already is existing that you can just sort of replicate into an application. That's what I was doing with all of those applications that you saw before. All right, so back to push notifications. So the way I've set it up in my apps, and the way I'm going to keep on setting up in my apps, is basically you go and you set it up so that when you receive a push notification, and the user receives it, and he goes into your app, you can go and you can handle it. You can either shoot them to a mobile Safari, you can shoot them pretty much anywhere you want. So I'd click at a button, I can send anyone to any URL at any time I want. And that's the idea. So basically what you do is you'd go and you'd publish your quality app, and then you'd send a bunch of traffic to it via push notifications. And I wrote a pretty good tutorial on how to do that on my Student Hot Cocoa blog. So that's how we get traffic to our quality apps. All right. So now you may be wondering, how do we build quality apps? I mean, how do we begin to do that? And this is sort of my process. It doesn't have to, your process doesn't exactly have to be like this. Basically, the first thing you want to do is dream. You want to sort of come up with how you want to, or what you want to solve. So, it can be a game, it could be an app that takes you to the moon or something. It could be anything you want. Obviously within the realm of possibilities. And this is by far probably the funnest part, and often a lot of the time it's the hardest part of building an application. So the second thing you want to do after that is research. Okay, you want to hit up Google. You want to do you want to go and look in the App Store if your app is already. You want to look on App Chart, Top App Charts. I think it's literally topappcharts.com that you go to see that, and basically shows you lots of statistics and things of that nature about applications. And also, I didn't put it in here, but you really should use the Google keyword tool, even though it's not necessarily reflective of what the App Store does, and who's what people are typing in the App Store, that'll give you a pretty good sense of what people type in and what people are looking for, if for nothing else. I mean, there's not a amazing way, to just go and find how to, what to set as your keywords and whatnot. All of that stuff needs to be done with a little bit of uh, I don't know what a good word for that is, but a little bit of a discretion, because there isn't necessarily a right answer. You're never going to find a right answer as far as that goes, because there isn't anything published by Apple. So don't feel bad if you don't find anything really juicy. All right, and so the second part is build, or I mean, the third part is build. So after you come up with you researched, you look at that everything you want to use. So you have this great idea, you've researched it, you've done you've asked around, seen if people want it or whatever. So then you go to a design phase. All right, so you go and you literally draw every single screen of your app. All right, right down to the details, right down to any animations. Obviously, you can't animate on paper very well, so what you'll do is you'll just sort of, I don't know, maybe put a star or something by it. But the point is that you really want to uh, put down everything, all of your ideas on the paper. Get it extremely refined, um, everything from images to text, everything. And then you want to build it. And obviously, Buzztouch is a really good way to do that. You want to add in push notifications. If you have the Cintiq, that's what this thing is in. This thing is. I use it a lot, and you can do a lot of good graphics with that, as well as an application called Art Text, and Photoshop is a pretty good one, obviously, as well. So now you have built your app and you want to ship it over to the App Store. So obviously you have to pay the $100 for the App Store to Apple to be able to use the App Store and to be able to publish there, as well as publish to your device. And the same thing with Google Play. I believe, well, actually, it's $20 for Google Play if I remember correctly. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I don't use Android that much, so after you've built your app, you sort of go into a refine phase, and the refining phase is more of a sort of a cycle. You go and you take in analytics, and maybe you do some advertising, and basically, with that information that you get back, you want to refine. So if I start seeing a lot of in-app purchases for XYZ, then I want to see if I can maybe lower the price or put up the price to see if people will buy more at the same price or at that upgraded price. So you want to kind of tinker around with that, and you can also do a little bit of advertising if you like. Personally, I haven't seen that much from advertising, but you might want to start out with something like tap for tap, which is basically you go and you put in ads in your application. Then when people hit the ad on your application, you're credited. And then when somebody else, then basically you'll get an ad space on somebody else's. So that's how that works. All right, so now we've talked a little bit about how to build quality apps, and how do you build a quantity apps. All right, so basically the way I do it is I not really dream, but I get inspired by something. I look into my own life, and I basically look for things that I'm really into, like different video games, uh, movies, whatnot. An app can literally be about anything you want. You could come up with something like ice cream or something. You come up with a really great guide to ice cream. You can go and put that in that type of content. You can go and research that, which brings me to the next thing, which is research here. So basically, what you'll do here, instead of just looking up things like who's looking for your app, who wants your app, you're also going to look for things that your app is about. So if it's about ice cream, maybe you could go and you could look up the definition of ice cream or something. You could go and look at different flavors of ice cream, go and do that stuff of that nature. And basically, you'll compile all of that. You'll sort of take notes, which I know sounds really boring, but if you're into the subject that you're looking at, you know, it can be really, really fun learning more about it.
Caleb, could I interrupt here for just a second?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, I've got one attendee who's raising his hand out there. L.A. Johnson. L.A., I'm going to unmute your microphone and let you ask your question. L.A., are you there?
Well,
Okay, Caleb, you can continue.
alrighty. So where was I? Oh, yes. All right. So you do a bunch of research. You go and you look at whatever subject you're looking at. So I don't know if you guys like Modern Warfare 3 or something, or any video games. You can go and do a little bit of research, and likelihood is that you already know plenty about that from plenty about the subject that you're looking up if you like it or not. So if it's ice cream and you really like ice cream, then you probably know what your favorite ice cream is, and you probably know a little bit about what you like basically. So that's just the biggest part about um, research. You're going and you're looking at uh, things in your everyday life, and basically compile all that information that somebody else may want in the app store, and people are probably looking for it too, because likelihood is people are into some of the things that you are into, so they'll go and they look for that stuff. So as far as design goes in here, you don't necessarily need to be as thorough as you are with quality apps. So you could you could maybe draw or maybe take notes about each page, so you can make a bullet list of each screen that you have in the application, sort of roughly, describe every single screen and sort of define what uh, your app is. And then of course, you go back and you build it. You don't want to use something. Well, generally, you don't want to use something as extravagant as a Photoshop, but you generally want to use applications like art text to do the imaging. Obviously, you're not limited to that. You could use Photoshop, but the idea here is to sort of get an app out quickly, or not in a bad way, of course, but I think you guys know what I mean. All right. So of course, and then you ship to the App Store and or Google Play if you're an Android user. And so the marketing and analytics part of this, and if you notice, if I go back here, all right, and if you notice, I didn't put refine here. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do updates to your application. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you don't want to do as much analytics, as much tinkering, as you will, because you'll have a lot of these applications. If you make a ton of money, and you can hire people to do that type of investigation for you, by all means, it'll definitely help your sales, I'm sure, but that's not the biggest idea about this.
Hey, Caleb,
About
this is Warren once again.
Mhm.
L.A. was trying to ask your question, but he was having some trouble. So if I could, to clarify, when you say find an app and duplicate it, can you give a little more explanation to that?
Sure. Do you know which when I was talking about that, was I talking about during the where was I talking about that?
I'm not sure. LA had the question. He's had his hand up for about 3 or 4 minutes now. So,
All right. Well, what I probably meant when I said that is I'm not saying to necessarily find another application to duplicate. I'm saying to find something. If I was talking about the quantity apps, then I was probably talking about finding sort of something that you like and sort of duplicating the content off of that. So like for me, when I found a YouTuber that I liked, a channel, and basically what I did is I made an RSS feed of their app of their videos, and I did a quiz with it too, and I added a few different screens in there to basically add some fan-based content. So that's really what it is, or at least in that case, is it's fan applications. It's to appeal to users that you in the end want them to buy your quality apps. So here, let me clarify a little bit. So, all right. So when I'm talking about Infinity Blade. Infinity Blade is a pretty well known, game for the iPhone and for iOS in general, actually. And so basically, if you'll notice here, all of these are game-based applications or sort of entertainment-based applications, which is generally what a gamer does with his spare time. Spends money on entertainment, TV, movies, and whatnot, and he plays video games, obviously. So, like, if you have Angry Bird cheats here, that's probably going to attract somebody who would also want to play Infinity Blade. And same thing with here. This is called iLore for World of Warcraft. That's a game that I play also. And basically, this is meant to attract other World of Warcraft players, and so they will probably like Infinity Blade. And same thing with Cut the Rope cheats. I'm not sure how much that applies to them, because generally World of Warcraft players are a little bit more critical about games, but that's a different discussion. Alrighty, let's go back here. Alrighty, so as I was talking about, basically, this is what you want. This is what, in the end, you want to be happening. You want to be able to have around 5 or 6 or maybe 3 or 2 applications that point to a more complicated application, a quality application. So quantity applications, quantity. The point is to send them there to a paid application, or maybe one with a bunch of in-app purchases. Then you make this free, which will attract a lot more users as well. And also, you don't need to have a quality application of that magnitude of Infinity Blade. Obviously, this took many programmers and many graphic designers. So I mean, you don't need to be shooting for the stars here, but I mean, you can have something like Angry Bird cheats, because that's also applicable, where you have a bunch of well, actually, minus the mini nerf, but I can think of another application except for medical type application that I can find for that. So just pretend that's another gaming application. So we have a bunch of quality apps here that basically point to another sort of, quantity application that sort of points to what could be considered as a quantity application. But the point is that then this becomes a quality application because you're sending a bunch of users to it. So obviously you'll want to spend a little bit more time on building this, because you're going to have a lot of people being shot over there, and you're going to want good reviews on that so that it can eventually reach the top 5, whatever your goal is in the App Store, to be the top 5 or whatever, be in the top 100 applications. Because once you get into the top 100, you're going to get a lot of downloads by default, because it already has a lot of exposure, because a lot of people don't just use the search button or the search part of the App Store application. To use the top app charts of the application to see, who's downloading what, basically, or what's the majority of people downloading. And so if you get into the top 1,000 or top 100, you're going to be getting a good amount of downloads. All right, and so this is also what you could have in mind. It doesn't have to be a simple network like this. This of course will work fine, and by default you'll get at least around $1,000 forced, because you're sending, well, at least with a 5% income, a 5% conversion, with 5K users on each of these. So if you're doing that type of grind, that type of work, and you're sending everybody to your quantity application or whatever quality application you have. Sorry, I keep on interchanging those, but I think hopefully you guys know what I mean. So basically, you're sending everybody there, like I said, and by default you'll get around $1,000 because of that. And so this is something that you can also look into. You could own maybe 2 of these basic networks, and then you're forcing all your traffic to one giant quality application. Or you could have multiple, you could be doing this with your friends or something, and they also could have basic sorry, basic networks where you go and you send everybody to your main application, and then you send everybody your quality application or the biggest quality application. And you don't necessarily have to, shoot them all to one place and then shoot them to another. You can shoot, everything directly to the quality application. All right. So hopefully that made a little bit of sense. All right. So basically, if you take anything from this, hopefully, well, you understand that it does take a little bit of time to be able to do this. It's very fun, especially if this is something that you really like doing. So you need to determine how much time you want to put in, how many apps do you want to take the time to build, uh, and how much money do you want from that. So really, you have to kind of balance those two things out and come up with a goal. It's very important for you to come up with that sort of a mindset where you say, I want to get maybe $1,000 residual income um, with building applications. Because I mean, you don't have to keep on updating your applications. There are a lot of developers who build a very good application and they only basically fix something, or maybe they might add minor updates every maybe 3 months or 4 months. You don't necessarily have to be doing that refining process. Very nitty gritty with that. So basically, what I'm saying there is not to be a perfectionist. So basically, we built we talked about quantity applications and quality applications, and the differences between those. And basically, if quantity applications is applications like Infinity Blade, things that take a lot of time and a lot of precision that you only put a lot of time into building to make it very polished, very fun, very addictive, where the user is buying things with in-app purchases just because they love the game or they love the app. It doesn't have to be game. And so, and then we also talked about quantity applications. If you ever done some e-commerce, this could be considered like a landing page. Where basically, this is where you shoot a lot of traffic to, but you don't necessarily, put a lot of time into building everything up, if that makes any sense. So basically, you will want to push traffic from your quantity applications, things like Angry Birds cheats or whatever, the stuff that basically is building on top of fame that's already been established by other quality applications. And then you go and you shoot it over to your own quality application. And basically, you do that based on what what user you want to target. So if you want to target people who play Angry Birds, obviously you want to go and build Angry Birds cheat application, because Angry Birds is already getting a lot of searches in the App Store. So you can easily shoot a lot of traffic that way, or get a lot of traffic that way. All right, so we also talked about how to build quantity applications and quality applications. And the biggest difference between those two is you're not going to spend as much time in design, and you're not going to spend as much time building. And you're going to spend a lot more time doing refining and fine-tuning in your quality applications, things like Infinity Blade, where basically you just try to find the optimal points of interest for users and whatnot via in-app purchases or push notifications, things that they're interested in that you can send them to. And also, we also talked about how to position your networks and quality and quantity applications to bring in maximum money. So that's basically this, where you can have multiple basic networks to build this huge user base, where you have a lot of users, you can send them anywhere you want, and namely a quality application. All right, so that's basically everything I had to show you guys. Are there any questions?
Well, Caleb, I'm going to turn it over to David to start out and let him ask you a few questions, and then we'll turn it over to the audience.
All right, fantastic.
Hi, Caleb. Nice to meet you. I appreciate you putting this webinar together, and I think I think the gang will get a lot out of it. I certainly did just listening to you. You know, it's funny, we get involved in all these different ideas in our heads in terms of how we're, quote unquote, how we're going to do it, you know, each of us individually. And there's so many different strategies. And so my question for you, because I'm not really a marketer and I'm not really a guy who's comfortable kind of speaking with a whole lot of intelligence in terms of driving traffic to apps. I mean, I've done my experiments, but I'm not really a marketer at it. Have you tried any of these third-party systems or community sites where, you know, maybe you get involved with a kind of a gang of developers? And I'll elaborate on the question a little bit before I ask you to answer, but here's where I'm going with this. I mean, we've got a pretty good community of our own going in terms of Buzztouch, and I've thought of a lot of ways to where we could all work together to promote our own apps within each other's applications.
Oh yeah.
And I don't have any experience with that. Have you done that before? Can you enlighten us a little bit in that regard?
I've never okay, so what I've done is I've built a basic app network. I've never done something as large as this because obviously it takes a lot of time that I pretty much just don't have because I go to school and I do a lot of extra projects with that. And so basically no, I guess is the
Okay.
correct answer, but um theoretically I've done it many times, I guess you could say. So as
Yeah,
far
so
as
maybe Warren can open that question up to the rest of us. I mean, it might be that a lot of people in the meeting right now who are listening may be able to kind of add a little bit of detail to that.
yeah.
So the second question that I had for you was, um, it makes a ton of sense when you're talking about quality versus quantity. And you know, you could talk all day long about, you know, what's the difference and all that kind of stuff, and everybody has an opinion about the level of quality of everything they make, right? In other words, we all think what we make is high quality. But anyway, how long do you how long do you generally, like, for example, you had a couple of quote cheat apps up there where you have a game that's popular and
Yeah.
you kind of extend the brand of, say, Angry Birds, for example, and try to
Yeah.
take advantage of that. How long do those typically last and continue to drive traffic to what you've called your private app? I mean, your quality app.
Yeah. Um,
Couple of
honestly,
months?
it's pretty long.
Okay.
Honestly, I went and I built a StarCraft application that basically just shows you. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of that game, but basically it just shows counters between the units that you can send out. And I mean, I've been getting, I think about $100 easily, and I haven't done anything to that thing since I think almost a year and a half ago. So I mean, honestly, when I say I think well, basically it's residual. I mean, it
Sure.
it keeps on going as
Sure.
long
And
as
so
you
you
put it out
found
there
that they
enough.
lasted a little bit longer than maybe you originally expected.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I thought that that thing would go down in sales, pretty pretty fast.
Uh-huh.
But you know, people keep on searching for it. People keep on paying for the application. So you know, I keep on making money basically.
Yeah, totally.
And
And then the
yeah,
last one that I have for you is a lot of these a lot of these kind of marketing concepts coming from my mind, which is again not a marketing mind, right? I'm not the kind of guy who understands, you know, traffic drivers and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I probably do to the extent that most of us do, but not maybe to the extent that a marketer does. Have you experimented with anything about this whole jailbroken market?
um,
Can people buy things from your app if their phone is jailbroken?
well, yeah, it depends on how you build the application. Are you
Okay.
talking about the in-app purchases, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm talking about a lot of different things, and I ask that because I've never been a fan of that, the whole jailbroken world, not because I'm against it, but because I just don't understand it, and I tend to get intimidated with things that I don't understand.
Hmm.
And it seems to me that if your phone's jailbroken or your audience's phone is jailbroken, it just feels black hat to me, you know, and I'm a little
Yeah,
bit not
yeah,
I'm
that's
just
why I
naive to
do
the
it.
whole
For
concept, but I
don't
keep
do it.
hearing, you know, that maybe it's fine and it works great.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of. Well, are you looking at more? Do you want me to give you the marketer answer, or do you want
No,
me to
I'm just
give you
asking
the
if you have any
philosophical
experience
answer?
with the whole jailbroken world. I don't. And
Right.
from someone who maybe does, I thought maybe you'd explored it a little bit. Maybe you could add a little perspective or something. I don't
No,
know.
I've jailbroken and I've admittedly I've done some of the things that are considered unethical. But
Sure,
I mean, I
sure.
guess the biggest thing, it's sort of like with selling songs.
Got it.
So I mean, people are always going to be buying from something like iTunes, and people are always going to be ripping it. I mean, that's just sort of the nature of the beast.
Totally.
So yeah, as far as I recommend doing in-app purchases, and in fact, the way I structured my plugin is so that people can get around it with unlocking, because I wait for a response from Apple, and that's how you get around, or that's how you block people from doing in-app purchases.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I know,
That makes
yeah,
sense.
and I also know that that there's some jailbreaking, I guess, add-ons or whatever you want to call them. I think they're called plugins. Um, but basically they block iAds, and so I mean there isn't much that you can do about that, because iAds
Right.
is all hooked up to Apple, and if a jailbroker or figured out how to remove those or to break the connection, I mean that's 100%, sort of out of our reach, if that makes any
Yeah,
sense.
totally.
So
Yeah,
I
that
mean
makes
there are
sense.
always going to be people buying from the App Store, and there are always going to be people buying or ripping it. So that's just sort of the nature of the beast. Really I don't know. I probably would never go into like selling add-ons or whatever, or seeing if there's any way to make money off of jailbroken devices, because I mean that's almost like a contradictory statement.
Yeah, see, it feels like
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, David. You there?
We might have lost David, but while we're waiting for him to jump back on, L.A. Johnson, you've got a question? Well, I thought.
Hello.
Caleb, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. L.A.,
You
are
said
you
he had a
there?
question.
Yeah. I'm wondering, because I had a timer set up for this. I'm wondering if we lost everybody when the timer went off. David, are you there? Oh, David did drop offline. LA is not there. Sean McMean, I'm unmuting you now. Sean, are you there?
Yeah, hi, this is Sean.
Okay, Sean, you had a couple of questions related to push notifications and success. If you want to ask.
Yeah, what do you use for push notifications?
So I use mostly because setting up your own server and whatnot is pretty complicated. I use Urban Airship. It's a pretty good service. It's free. That's what I use. It has lots of good things about it. I think that kind of trumps over the other services. So, and that's what I wrote my tutorial on Steaming Hot Cocoa. So,
And it's pretty easy to use as far as just logging into their website and pushing
yeah, I
notifications.
mean the interface is a little bit, I don't know, it can be a little bit intimidating at first, but you get used to it pretty quickly.
Okay, and then the second question I had was when I first saw this webinar come out, I was hoping that this would be more towards building apps for other businesses.
Mm.
So this is definitely a new concept that I didn't even think of, and it's great to see, this point of view of it. So my question along this this strategy, how much money, if you don't mind sharing, like how much money versus time are you making off of this type of strategy? Like kind of on a monthly basis.
All right, well, as I said before, what I've done is I've built a basic network, again, because I just don't have the time to go and build a huge network like this. So what I've done is I only have two applications, and basically they're just feeding off of um, each other's income. So with all that in mind, I mean not income, but traffic. So basically, I'm just reversing the traffic between the two. So in this case, they're both sort of quantity and quality applications. So basically, what I've done there is I've uh, oh geez, I lost my train of thought. But basically I'm making about I think 300 from that. Um, Yeah. So I mean, it's not a huge deal, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just like I said, I hadn't thought of that strategy. My strategy is more towards on, going to businesses and trying to develop an app for them,
Yeah.
and making money off of maintaining it, developing it, and so on. So
Yeah,
I
that's
hadn't.
certainly a great way to go.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just said that's certainly a great way to go. It's a good business to be in. It's a little bit different. In fact, Apple's done a lot of improvements there to make it easier to do stuff like that. I don't know if you've looked into doing B2B applications, business to business.
Yeah, that's sort of where I'm gearing, my development. But
Yeah,
again, I'm just getting started, and it was great to see a different perspective that like this. So thank you.
absolutely. My pleasure.
We also had a couple of questions from Matt Aquila 198. And Matt, I've unmuted your mic. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but if you can, jump in here. Well, I'm not sure if Matt's microphone is working or not, but his first question was, did you ever run into any copyright issues with using similar branding?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, you're gonna run into that as soon as you start trying to do quantity application. I probably should have made a slide about that. But as far as getting it past Apple or I don't know what to call the people who review Google Play applications, but for example, this ERB application that I did, this isn't the actual logo for them, as it kind of looks similar, but it's a different font. And even though they don't have that logo trademarked or anything, I mean, I when I actually checked, but I still fret at using that type of stuff. So never, ever use images or logos. Basically, you don't want to do anything like that. So if you're building a Modern Warfare application, the most you can do is put MW3 in a different font. I mean, it doesn't have to be a hugely different font, but I mean, you can't actually go and like copy and paste it. You never want to do that, which is pretty standard. So, does that answer your question? Or is that question?
Well, I'm not sure if it answered Matt's question or not, but during the process, did you ever run into anything where another developer out there or another business entity actually sent you like a cease and desist or actually came in contact with you and said, hey, you got to stop?
No. Yeah, I don't know. People are pretty chill about that stuff if you ask me, or at least I am. I mean, if I saw another application that was StarCraft 2, Counters, which is the name of my application that I have, basically, I would just try to improve my application so that's better than theirs. So, I mean, that's how I look at um, copyright stuff. I know that Apple has a different view on it, especially with things like the iPhone and iOS and whatnot. They had a huge uh, problem once Android came out, as I'm sure everybody here knows. But yeah, I just look at it as an opportunity to make a better application. Honestly, it just motivates me. That's the way I look at it. So
Okay. Back to urban airship. Um, One of our participants points out that urban airship is not free; it's 199 per month. But
yeah, that's if you. Oh, sorry.
isn't
Uh,
that if you go over like a million pushes in a month?
yeah, that's over. Yeah, and honestly, I don't see even this where you have um, you know a, a, all of your applications basically connecting to each other via push notifications. I never see yourself hitting that type of a mark unless you're doing something huge like this where you have a few different applications. That'd be only if if you have quality applications just running through this pipeline, like it's nobody's business, you know. So I mean, I never see myself hitting that sort of a mark, honestly. But I can see how you could hit it. But if you are gonna hit that limit, you are definitely gonna have enough money to be able to pay for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I use urban airship on one application. Same logic for me. So
Yeah. if you're ever going to hit that, you'll have plenty of money to be able to say, oh yeah, this is a good investment. Because also, I believe with that 199, you get a few other things that is pretty good that comes along with that. In fact, I believe one of the features of that 199 is to be able to send push notifications that will basically present sort of a UI web view, and where and it has like a designer, and you can go and you can design a little, basically a page where people can be sent to, a sort of a landing page if you're familiar with that.
Okay, Durval, hope I didn't mispronounce that. Do you have a question for Caleb?
Yeah, hi there, this is Durable. Yeah, my question is about educational type apps. I think we're talking a lot here about games. I was wondering, is there money to be made from educational type apps?
Yes, yes and no, because well, it depends on really how much time. I think that there's a little bit of an, I don't know. I don't want to say that it's necessarily more narrow, but I think that there's a good amount of people looking for good quality education applications, and that's the biggest problem I see with that, is because there's going to be a lot of content so if you're going to try and teach something like Spanish, and I've seen several applications like that, but that's going to take a good amount of time. So I don't know, it depends on how you want to do it. If you want to do applications that literally teach people, or are you looking at more of an application that maybe manages like a college student's time or something? There are a lot of those, like to-do lists. Which one are you looking at more?
I'm looking more educational, music, dance, instruments, that area.
Right, so like teaching people how to play like the guitar.
For example, yeah, our children, a younger age group, learning how to play, for example, the violin.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I think that there's plenty of opportunity for that. Like I said, the trouble will be is getting it in front of people. I don't know how much traffic, because I've never made an educational app, but I've also often thought about doing one, and done a fair amount of research on it. And yeah, all I can say is that you might want to build a look at what people would, I don't know, you'd probably want to be a little bit more broad. So for example, if you were going to build a violin application that teaches somebody how, or a younger child how to play the violin, you'll definitely want to make other applications like math applications, where basically you're just going to build this sort of a network, but you're going to do it with a lot of different parts of the education, because
Okay.
education is pretty broad.
And would you recommend using Facebook for getting your app known? Would you recommend using advertising on Facebook for that?
Honestly, no. That's mostly because I never really use Facebook, to be perfectly honest. It could be fine, but I don't think that you're necessarily going to get your money's worth if you do that. So I wouldn't use Facebook ads. Yeah,
Okay,
I would just use iAds if you're going to go that route, or AdMob, which is
right.
usually
Okay.
iAd. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Caleb, this is Warren. Before we wrap up here, I know that you have just released your in-app purchase plugin. If you'd like to talk about that a little bit, and then we're going to turn it over to David to wrap up today's meeting, okay?
Sure. All right, so here, let me go ahead and bring up the application. Nothing to see there. Okay. Alrighty. So yeah, basically what I've done here is I've created an application that will basically, it works a lot like the login application that David built. And basically what it does is it sort of locks up another plugin or another screen and basically the user has to pay for it before they get to it. And I don't know if we have enough time, but I'd bring up my simulator and show you how it works. But basically, how it works is you go and however you get to the plugin, to my plugin. Basically, it will forward to you if you've already paid for the in-app purchase for the page. It'll forward you to the next screen if you've already paid for it, and if you haven't already paid for it, then it'll basically not forward and just stick on that page, and until the person pays for it, it'll just stay there. So I hope that makes some sense for people who are wondering about my in-app purchase plugin.
Okay, and I'm sure that you would take direct questions about that once we're offline here
Yeah.
through the Buzztouch forum. Again, Caleb, I'd like to thank. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, if there are any questions, you can always do a post on the Buzztouch forum. Always a more direct way to get a hold of me is to send me a message. So you can PM me or put up a thread on the forums, and I'll get to you as quick as I can.
Okay. Caleb, once again, thanks for presenting here today. A lot of great information. David, if you'd like to take just a couple minutes to wrap things up here as we get done.
All right. So I'm sorry, did you want me to wrap up? Or were you talking to David?
Oh, David is muted, and I'm sorry about that because he dropped out. Unmute.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering.
There we go, David. Sorry, you've been trying to talk for 10 minutes now, and I got you shut off.
Hey, just so you know, even though it said muted on the screen, as a last resort, I just slid my window open and just started yelling everybody out on the street. You can't mute me completely.
I will not.
Hey, so no, we got about a couple of minutes left. So wonderful. This is our first. This is the first webinar that was presented by somebody other than me, and Caleb and the Code Monsters. I mean, what a generous offer on his part to not only take time to teach us some things over the last hour, but for anybody who's made a PDF or a PowerPoint or whatever. I mean, you realize how much time goes into this stuff. So huge props to Caleb. Couple of favors. One is have a look at his plugin. If you're going to sell stuff in your app, that's a great way to do it. You can protect some menus. You can protect a series of videos or whatever. Derval was asking about maybe education. You could do a little test by putting a simple little application together with a menu of learning topics, be it videos or quizzes or something like that, and you could sell those with Caleb's plugin, and that might be something worth at least experimenting without a whole lot of risk. And then the last thing is, if you're on Twitter, jump on Twitter and follow @theCodeMonsters. Let's get Caleb some followers. And besides that, we're going to have a couple of webinars throughout the rest of the week. There's going to be one tomorrow and then one Wednesday. So I encourage everybody to jump in those. And I think Warren's doing a great job keeping these on schedule down to an hour. I mean, it gets a little bit long beyond that. And huge props to Warren for putting these together. And thanks to the gang. So we'll see you guys around. And I'm out. I learned a bunch. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. And as David mentioned, tomorrow we'll have one hosted by Thomas Boyd, Annandale Apps, on common Xcode troubleshooting. And then on Wednesday night, it's a newbie webinar, so to speak, but really will help everybody. Your roadmap from the very first time you log in to buzztouch.com all the way through getting your app in the Apple App Store. So, and Stowe will be presenting that. So a couple of great webinars coming up, and be sure and check it out on the Buzztouch forum to get signed up. And again, thanks everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.